God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the call. Everything that you do plays some sense of role to the ultimate goal that God has of your life.
My level of success is only attached to his purpose in my life.
Why would I try and set myself up for greatness when he already has everything set in place?
Oftentimes people are so focused on getting from A to B that they don't realize they were gonna get to B regardless. They just had to be present in their journey.
God himself is fire. If you want to be like him and get closer to him, you can't be afraid of him submerging, thoroughly putting you into the fire. Scripture talks about, gold is refined through fire. And sometimes we avoid fire not knowing that it's for our own refinement. And we'll avoid it not knowing that it's the only.
You're talking kind of hot right
it's
now.
all right.
That's all I'm saying. We can know the gravity of the fact that we are seated at a diner and having this conversation, having a boardroom discussion.
He didn't make me just be an athlete. He called me to be more than just an athlete.
If your dad got it out the mud, you gonna get it out the garden.
God was getting ready to transition me from living in my own purpose to living into his purpose he had for me. Your reputation always precedes you before you even get in the room. Because God is the ultimate orchestrator.
Welcome to the Empowered Era podcast, brought to you by the Elizabethan Era. I'm your host, Elizabeth, also known as Lizzie, and today we have none other than Lubbock Smith III. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing, sis?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited to have you on.
I was saying.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. It's been a great day so far, so I definitely think this is going to set the rest of the day off, for sure.
Okay, awesome. So in today's episode, I really want them to get a lot out of this conversation. And I think that from the outside looking in, some would think like, how did they stumble upon each other and how did they cross paths? What I want you all to take away from this episode is the depth of his story. He has quite a testimony, but also just how high God can take you when you are really tapped in with him. And then beyond that, all of the great things that can come of the city of Dallas when you are tapped in with somebody like Lubbock. Lubbock is the current Vice President of Director of Community Development and Vista Outreach at Vista Bank. I got the opportunity to go into two of the branches and see just the ebbs and flows of like how you work the room and the person that you are. When you walk into the room, everyone greets you and you greet them like if it's just a neighborhood. And I think that's something that not everybody sees in work settings or especially in a bank setting.
Yeah.
I know on my end, I was like, I bank here and I bank here, but do I have that niche relationship with my banker? Maybe, maybe not. So let's talk with them a little bit about that. But first, I want you to do the honors of introducing yourself and all that you are.
Oh, for sure. So first of all, I want to say thank you for bringing me on to the podcast. I've been looking forward to it, so I know we're going to have a great time.
Yes.
So I am Lubbock Smith III. I'm not from Lubbock, Texas. I'm from Oak Cliff, born and raised. I am the Vice President and Director of Community Development and Outreach at Vista Bank. This May, I will be the Senior VP, leading our newest bank in South Dallas, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more later. I'm also co-founder, partner, and board member of Built-In Realty Group, doing residential and commercial real estate. And most importantly, I am the husband of Diana Fuentes. It'll be our 10-year anniversary this July.
Congrats!
And then father of a 5-year-old daughter named Genesis, who I love dearly, who is 5 going on 15. So most importantly, I'm a man of God, husband and father, and just a person who loves to serve and put others first.
Love that. And I love the choice of name, Genesis.
Oh yeah,
that's
a whole nother story. That's probably a podcast for itself, for real.
No, the thing is, we're gonna get to it. Just know we're gonna get to it. Let's actually just start in the beginning. How did we meet? How did we stumble across one another? The event, how did we both end up there?
Yeah.
Let me know your thoughts and then I'll chime in.
So first of all, I got invited by a good mutual friend of ours, Marty McDonald. Shout out to Marty, who is the founder and CEO of Boss Women Media. And she was like, hey bro, me and Danielle, who's Danielle Senior C. Jones, the head of Amazon's Black Business Accelerator. And it was like, we want more men of your caliber in the room.
Yeah.
So we would like for you to come, and if you know any investors or different people that need to be in the room, let me know. And so I come to the event, which is over at the Jewel downtown. It was a phenomenal event. And so while I'm there, I remember walking into the elevator with you when I saw a mutual friend.
We arrived at the same time.
Yeah, we got there at the same time, and I just felt like I knew you already. I was like, what is this chick? You know, like she cool.
Yeah.
You know, she seemed like good people, but I don't want to come out weird, like, you know,
You're like,
off with
hey.
like, right. And so throughout the entire event, which was a great, I saw you and your sister.
Yeah.
And I thought y'all were twins. I was like,
Oh, we get that all the time.
I was like, hold on, I'm seeing two. And so
That. Am I seeing double?
exactly. And so I just kept looking. I was like, I feel like I know them, but I don't know them.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me wait for the right opportunity to introduce myself. So at the end of the event, I saw y'all, and we were just the three of us smiling at each other, and I was just
Yeah.
like,
Let me walk over and say
yeah,
hi.
yeah. I was like, hey, what's up? It was like, hey, and I was like, what's y'all names? And so got to connect with you both, and just learning about you all being very business savvy, and the way you presented yourself was very modest, but you can tell that you have nothing but greatness about you. And I was like, I want to be connected with them, in addition to having y'all as clients potentially, right?
Yeah.
And so from that point on, you and I got connected and had a meeting at the bank to talk about ways we could build a relationship, and then it just hit off from there. So
literally in the beginning.
yeah, right.
That's literally how we
Yep.
met. And that event was so beautiful for many reasons. That event was the night before I pretty much caught a red eye from New York New York Fashion Week. And so I came back and went straight in. It was a breakfast, it was a brunch. And I remember just chatting with different people, seeing familiar faces, meeting new faces. And I was like, wow, like to be in a room that had that many affluent Black women,
Yep.
women of purpose, people that were really just like chasing their dreams and like making stuff happen. The men definitely stood out.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? And so it's like, okay, either the men are here because that's their wife, or the men are
Right.
here because they're invited based on X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And having that conversation, I remember even just like in the intro, we were talking about Trinity Groves because me and my sister lived in a townhouse in Trinity Groves. You were like, yeah, you know, like I'm one of the banks that runs X, Y, and Z. And then we talked about the connection to the art park and Nick and Sam's and the network bar. And I was like, oh, I've had an event there.
Yeah.
So there's always been alignment from the moment we walked into the elevator together. Tell everyone a little bit more about your personal story in terms of how you got into finance. Because are you a finance bro?
I will say yes now,
Yes, now. Okay.
but in terms of my background, not whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so it's a true God story and how everything came together. So I have to kind of give you a little bit of context in terms of how I got here, so that way everything makes sense. So I used to be, my previous career was in athletics, Division I athletics.
That was
And
the
so-
other connect. Both being on the Division I mindset, having that like, I feel like when you have an athlete's mindset, it really does set you apart because you understand what hard work looks like.
Right.
Like you understand what off season looks like. And then
Absolutely.
you just translate that mindset into other areas of life.
No, for sure. And so because of having those skill sets that can be transferred over into pretty much everything from being an athlete, because it is a mindset. So working in D1 athletics, having played football at the University of Kansas, was a 4-year starter at safety, and played with 3 different head coaches.
Yeah.
And so just having that career goal to playing in the NFL and being a prospect at one point, and the last game of my senior year, I tore my MCL, PCL, meniscus, and ACL against West
3?
Virginia. I tore everything. This whole left knee was done. Actually, right now, I have a deteriorating ACL. Yeah, I have to get an MRI, yeah.
But
So
pause.
Yeah.
Every morning you be waking up running on
And
concrete.
running. I just pray over it, and I'll be like, hey, I got to get these calories off. I got to make sure I'm in
that's
shape. I don't have that dad bod because it's a real thing.
Yeah.
So
No, that's a good
No,
level
for
of
sure.
like determination.
No, for sure. And so I didn't let that hinder me from pursuing everything that God called me to do, because he didn't make me just be an athlete. He called me to be more than just an athlete.
Come on.
And so it ended up being a blessing in disguise. The athletics department at KU ended up creating me a position to where I started out in tickets and sales and fundraising.
Come on.
Then I got into marketing, student athlete development, and then academic advising for the football team, and they paid for my master's. So 2 degrees, career experience, connections, relationships, and no student loan debt.
So, okay. Let's just digest everything.
And there's
you
a lot of
said.
more detail into
I
that, but
know.
for the sake of the time, I'm
For
not
the
going to
sake
go
of
into it.
time, to dive into that, because I likewise had a full ride track scholarship, and I'm fully aware that it's hard to come by to get free education.
Oh, for sure.
Whichever route you choose, whether it's full ride academic, full ride athletic. What advice in this moment would you give to a younger version of yourself, someone listening in, someone viewing, if they are really in a season of trying to figure out, like, I want to get to the next, but
Yeah.
funds may not allow, education wise?
Yeah. I would definitely say I would have started a lot sooner,
Okay.
earlier, meaning like high school.
Yeah.
Connecting with people, finding out, hey, can I get some job opportunities, internships now? In high school, I worked at Champs, so I thought that
Okay.
was a cool job for me to be able to get
Some
shoes either
kicks.
for some kicks for free or for
Yeah.
a discount, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to ball on a budget. But at the same time, just understanding that everything that you do plays some sense of role to the ultimate goal that God has of your life.
Yeah.
So I think just starting earlier, understanding the importance of character, how you do anything is how you do everything. So being more than on time, being extremely early, making the most of every single relationship, not being one-sided, always looking at everything from a win-win relationship and not making it transactional, all about yourself.
Yeah.
So just those different things, so that way, no matter if you can get a full ride or not,
Yeah.
you're making the most of whatever opportunity you're presented, because that's just a part of your story. It's not the end of the story. This is part of your journey.
I love that you said that. And I love
Yeah.
that you tied in the word journey, because I think oftentimes people are so focused on getting from A to B that they don't realize they were going to get to B regardless. They just had to be present in their journey.
And a lot of times people think, it's A, B, C, D. Sometimes it's A.1, point 2, point
Come
3.
on.
It's linear, and you can jump all the way to T, and like it's
Quick.
yeah, and you never. And sometimes you got to go back to A or B. So it doesn't.
Because you didn't lay the foundation.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, we're just sojourners. We're just traveling through time. Everything that God has set up for us is going to be, if we choose to align ourselves with it. And to go back to the story,
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I gave my life to Christ in college, which again, we talked about that.
Yes.
When we talked about you coming on as a client and talked about our journeys and stuff. And so that played a huge role in terms of where I am today. And during that time in life where I was looking for career opportunities, and thankfully, it helped me to have a mindset of, I want what God wants and not what I want,
Yeah.
because He knows about the future.
Yeah.
Why would I try and set myself up for greatness when He already has everything set in place?
Say
so
that.
doing that, a part of that journey, after I got my master's, I ended up getting a call from USC after I had, applied for a job.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, unfortunately, we're not pursuing this position anymore. However, we saw your resume and we're very impressed. We wanted to know if you can fly in for an interview. Ended up killing the interview, and I
Yeah.
started interviewing tons of other places. I ended up interviewing with San Diego State.
Yes.
And within the same week, the Monday, I was at USC. The next day, I was at Penn State. The next day, I was like the University of Iowa. I was just flying different places back to back for interviews. During my interview at San Diego State, I'm in a hotel the night before. The woman that was the senior associate AD at USC, she called me. It was maybe 8 p.m. She said, "Where are you?"
And
I was like,
knew
because
you
she
was
knew
interviewing.
I was interviewing.
She knew you were interviewing.
She knew. I was like, why? She said, because I know you were out interviewing somewhere. I
Yeah.
said, I actually am. She said, where are you? I said, San Diego State. She said, you got your interview tomorrow? I said, yeah. She said, when you go, tell them you're not going there, that you're coming to USC. I was like, all right. So
Okay.
the way she was kind of aggressive,
she
that's
kinda
I
cold
kind of,
like that.
that's kind of like my style. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, we kind of speak the same
Like, I
language.
respect it. Mhm.
So I respected it. You kind of go after what you want. And so
Yeah.
ended up going to USC, academic advisor for women's basketball, men's and women's tennis, rowing, was a personal development coordinator.
For USC?
USC, University of Southern California,
So
and Los
USC,
Angeles.
the same team that we was just watching during March
Yeah,
Madness?
with Juju. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I would have stayed there, she would have been one of
Yeah.
my student athletes.
I
And
love
so,
that. Because she's
she's
killing
dope.
it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it was actually my favorite sport. I actually
Yeah.
intentionally, because of my background being in football,
Mm-hmm.
and because I don't know why, I always knew that I would end up a girl dad, which is crazy how things played out, because I
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
grew up in an all-female household.
Okay.
And we can talk about that more.
No,
some more throughout
we've
the podcast.
talked about it
Yeah,
offline.
for sure.
So as far as, and I'm glad you even touched on
Mm.
it, as far as you having this inkling that you were going to grow up a girl dad and you being surrounded by women, how did that pave your path and alter your perspective of women in general?
It definitely prepared me in multiple
Yeah.
ways. I would definitely say growing up being the youngest, the not only the youngest, but the baby and only boy. My
Wait,
dad
how many
was
siblings?
Yeah, I got two older sisters.
Okay.
Well, actually, I have three older sisters, one on my dad's side and an older
Okay.
brother
Yeah.
on my dad's side. But in my immediate household with my mom, two older sisters. And I was a baby and only boy. Dad went to prison when I was like 19 years old. And when that happened, my mom was like, "You're the man of the house."
Yeah.
Had
At
no
9.
clue at 9. And I had no clue what that meant.
You haven't even touched double digit.
Yeah. And I didn't know what it meant, but all I knew was at that time, at the age of 9, a man is supposed to provide. He's supposed to make things happen, no excuses. So
Mr. Make It Happen.
that's all I've ever done my whole entire life since that point, which is, for good. And I would just say, and I talked to my mom about this, that I don't think any young boy should ever be told that they're a man of anything, because you're still growing up.
Yeah.
And you should be a kid.
Yeah.
But it truly allowed me to grow up fast and help me mature and develop. But now I get to live my childhood through my daughter in ways, but empowering her to be everything she was called to be. And then when I was at USC, which was amazing about growing up in a single, in an all-woman household, was that I knew how to kind of like talk with the young women I was working with. They would catch attitudes and be like, "Man, you tripping, Lubbock? Like, why I gotta go to tutoring?
Yeah.
How come I can't just skip and do all, why I gotta be in these classes?" And I'll just be patient with them and just loving on them. And to this day, a lot of them still hit me up.
Yeah.
They refer to me as big bro. Matter of fact, one of them I just ran into, she coaches at TCU.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
she's
love
one of the
that.
women's basketball coaches. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
great.
it's just really cool how everything came full circle. And then in addition to that, personal development coordinator at USC as well, teaching life skills, life skills, holistic
Yeah.
development. And then I taught a class to the football team. So yeah.
Pause.
Yeah.
Every aspect that you were doing all ties into the initial question of, were you a finance bro? Like,
right.
how did you end up here?
Yeah.
And I think there were a lot of life skills, and there were a lot of technical skills. There were a lot of people skills that you learned along the way that cultivated you into like who you are today
Yep.
in order to operate in the role, the
Yep.
direct role that is being created,
Yep.
not just the role that USC created for you,
Right.
but also the role that's being created for you at Vista
Yeah.
Bank.
Because God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called.
Come
So a lot of
on.
times you think that, I want this position, I want that. If you ever shrink yourself to a position, you'll never be fully utilized to your max potential by God. So you have to make your dreams so big that they create opportunities and positions for you, which we'll talk about because that's what happened in Vista.
Yeah.
But to give context,
Yeah.
to give more context, because everything's connected in
Yeah.
terms of my story, which I love, and I'm so humble how God brought it all together. Because I guarantee you, even when I was at USC, never would have thought my future would be this way. So got an offer, had my daughter, and at the same time I had my daughter out in LA, I got offered an opportunity at Old Dominion University to be the director of student athlete development and leadership programs.
Okay.
So I'm like, this is a great opportunity. It seems like it'll be a good fit for me and my family, but I would rather have this type of opportunity here at USC. So when I told the woman that had brought me on during that conversation, she was like, "Well, I think we should negotiate." I was like, "I think we should." And so she was like, I told her my
And
turn.
this is, pause.
You good.
This is when you have to really believe in yourself when it comes to negotiation power. Don't always just accept the first offer and take that as like point blank period. That's going to be truth and that's Bible, because it's not always.
Right. But also, don't ever negotiate if there isn't an official offer on the table. A lot of people get that wrong, which I've even experienced in my own profession, where I won't go into details.
Yeah.
But people can be very unprofessional about how they go about things because they're thinking about self
Yeah.
and they don't think about the bigger picture. And so
Okay.
I'm just grateful that being a part of athletics, being a part of teams, I've always seen the big picture. You have to go about things the right way, the way that represents God and who you are.
Yeah.
Because your reputation always precedes you before you even get in the room for the interview.
Say that one again.
Yeah, your reputation always precedes you before you even get in the room. So if you've been known to be a person that, we didn't even make an offer, this person then already went to their boss and then tried to negotiate and use us as leverage, that won't sit well in the future when people are asking, "Hey, who is this person?" And for me, my reputation ain't finna be on the line for you, so I'm gonna keep it real. Now, I'm gonna be professional. I'm not gonna demean you and put you down, but I'm also not gonna advocate on your behalf. So there's that. But in terms of,
You see my face?
you're right. So
This is the point of the podcast, that if you are tuning in to Spotify, to Apple Podcasts, to iHeart, just pause. Don't stop. Just pause and go to the YouTube channel and tap in because to get the full picture, you really got to watch it.
No, for sure. And so, in terms of taking on the opportunity, we negotiated. She told me that my terms were very reasonable.
Okay.
Which
we
I
love
was
that.
quite surprised about, knowing that USC, they don't really do that. And so she went and spoke with the athletic director at the time, Lynn Swan,
Yeah.
and who had, become a mentor of mine. And I'm just like, oh, this is a wrap. I'm getting this.
Yeah.
And so she came back and she was like, Lynn even agreed that it was reasonable terms, but unfortunately, we cannot meet those terms right now because we have a capital project to focus on the LA Coliseum. And we don't have the budget for this department to expand your role.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you know what, this is just a sign from the Lord that I need to move on.
Okay.
But they even went as far, which I'm appreciative of. She was like, Lynn Swan would like to meet with you. He just
Yeah.
told me, it was like, you being where you are, young in your career, you got a family. He said, I honestly believe that this would be a great move for you, and I think great things are going to happen for you in the future. He said, hopefully we can steer you back. But, I was like, no, I get it, I appreciate it. And so it went on to Old Dominion University, and not going to speak too much on that, but
That's fine.
but it was everything I needed to get to where I am today. Learned a lot. There
'Cause
wasn't.
I've experienced that.
Yeah. Had to understand what it's like to be a provider for a family because we had no friends there, no family. I'm known to be the extrovert and be the person that's out there.
Yeah.
I made no friends.
That's how hard it was?
My wife, who's an introvert,
Oh.
made all the friends, which is so crazy. So I felt like
Y'all had like a flip.
it was a season where
Yeah.
God, we needed to go through in order to pull out deeper sides in us that wasn't revealed
Yeah.
to heal, but also to progress to the next season he was taking us to. But it was only for a season. It wasn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't for long term.
Season, if you could like reflect and like think back on it,
Mm-hmm.
when you were in that season, did you feel frightened? Did you feel confused? What were the feelings that you had?
I felt a lot of emotions. I would definitely say, in full transparency, I was frustrated and angry with the Lord because we prayed and fasted on it. And I was like, God, you told me to come here.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to thrive and prosper. All I'm doing is barely making it like here,
Yeah.
swimming through water, trying to make it, barely being able to make
Keep
it.
your head above water.
Yeah, like barely getting through every single day. And was told one thing, there was another. COVID hits, we get hit with a $3.5 million budget cut. I was one of the last one in, so I was one of the first to go.
Yeah.
And I had moved my entire family from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast.
Come on.
So I'm just like, the marathon guy,
And the
like,
thing is, when you move,
Yeah.
when you move for a job, when you move for an opportunity, and you feel like God has gone before you, all you can do is trust, because no one else can convince you that like, oh, well, this happens.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's happened to me before.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't think that da-da-da-da. Oh, well, maybe it's like, at the end of the day, it's really just you and him.
Right.
And so when you're feeling like, wait, hold on, what's going on? That is frustrating.
And in this case, yes, it was even deeply frustrating because it wasn't just me and God. I had a wife and
Yeah.
a daughter who was,
Yeah.
at the time we moved, only 8 weeks. Yeah, so she was fresh. So it's just keeping these things in consideration. It was times when I would even stay the night in my office to get work done.
Yeah.
Because I was both director of student athlete development and leadership programs and academic advisor for women's basketball and women's tennis. So I basically had like 2 or 3 jobs in one. But it was, like I said, it was a great opportunity to help me get to where I am now. I didn't see it at the time, but now I appreciate the hardship and the tribulation because Scripture talks about, gold is refined through fire. And sometimes we avoid fire not knowing that it's for our own refinement. It's to help us to actually prosper and not to, hinder us. And we'll avoid it not knowing that it's the only...
You're talking kind of hot right
it's
now.
all right.
That's all I'm saying, because the amount of times that, I'll even just speak for myself, that I've gone through fire and I've been so confused because I'm just like, it's so hot and I can't see what's really going on. It's like, it's foggy.
Yeah.
In other words, I'm going through a season where I don't have clarity.
Yeah.
And when you're out in Texas heat, you see the heat waves.
Oh,
you
yeah.
get
Oh, trust me.
frustrated.
We from it.
You get so frustrated that you can't even think clear.
Yeah.
And the whole time it was for our refinement.
Yeah, it's all for your good. You may not feel like it, but it's definitely for your own good. And so, it's Social Dallas. He talks about The
That's
scripture
my
right
whole
now
change.
is talking about being unshakable.
Yep.
And the last part of the full scripture we're reading,
Yeah, with
it said
Hebrews.
God himself is fire. If you want to be like him and get closer to him, you can't be afraid of him submerging, like thoroughly putting you into the fire.
Yeah.
If that's what you were meant to always become like him. So not trying to, you know, say, you know what I'm saying, trying to drop bars or anything like that. But in true reflection, to answer your question, that's
Yeah.
what I feel like God was doing. Is like, if you really want to become more like me and walk in the purposes, the fire is a part of it. So you
Come
can't avoid
on.
it. When I lost my job during COVID and I had to figure out what I was going to do with my family, prayed about it, and we ended up getting to come to Dallas. So ended up interviewing with the Oklahoma football team to be the director of player development for football, but they ended up getting hit with a budget freeze. So I'm just like, what the heck I'm gonna do? I was a finalist, but they couldn't hire me yet.
Yeah. If
So
there's no head count and there's no budget,
exactly.
we can't
So
fund it.
right. So my wife and I was like, what are we gonna do? My mom and my sister was like, just come on down to Dallas. You know, they're paying you out on severance. You know, you never
Yeah.
know what can end up happening. Come to Dallas, can't find anything. My sister's like, well, until you can find something, you know, just work in my school. I'm thinking with my accolades and background, I'm like, I could probably
Oh,
be
I
an
remember that.
assistant. I could be like an assistant principal or
Yeah.
something. I was like, what kind of job should I got? She was like, substitute. I was like, God, you got to be kidding me. So I come from background of experiences, all the different things, accolades, to move back to Dallas in my mom's house
Yeah.
with my wife and my daughter, and I'm gonna be a substitute teacher. I'm like,
And this is not to
lowest of lows.
not to cut you off, but this is like what we were describing. When God is moving, he could take you from A, B, C all the way to Z, or he could take you from A, B, T,
Yeah.
bring you back to B,
Yeah.
then you do C again, and
All over
you're
the place.
sitting here like, huh?
Yeah.
Like, what is the real lesson in all of this? And was there something I skipped as far as a step? Or is there
100%.
something in the foundation that I need to learn? Are you trying to humble me, God? Are you trying to break pride and ego? Like, what
All of
is
it.
it?
It was all of it, and the good thing is, it was all for my good.
Yeah.
So ended up praying about it. I was like, God, if they offer me a job, like I need to know if this is what you want me to do. So
Yeah.
they offered me the job, of course, and I'm like, God, you got to be kidding me. I'm gonna have to be a substitute. And so I prayed and fasted for a week. That Saturday, I was like, God, is this what you want? He was like, yes. I was like, you got to be kidding me. But then he gave me a vision, and it started out with the memory of when my dad went to prison, and my mom told me I was the man of the household. And my little league football coach, Willie Weeks, stepped in and was like, son, you cannot quit playing this sport. God is going to take you very far through it. That ended up being true, of course,
Yeah.
of course, according to the story. He becomes a father figure to me. He's my godfather. I call him Pops to this day. And God flipped the memory into a vision and showed me doing the same thing he had done for me, but for like a whole bunch of youth. And the Lord was like, this ain't about you. This is about what I'm gonna do through you. If you be
Yeah.
obedient to what I'm calling you to, I'm gonna bless you beyond your wildest dreams.
So
I'm
at
like,
this point, did you feel like you were walking in your calling, or were you confused?
I felt like God was getting ready to transition me from living in my own purpose to living into his purpose he had for me, which are two totally different things.
Let's go.
We try to get God on our terms and our
Yeah.
purpose. I want to do this. I want to be an athletic director. God was like, we ain't doing none of that. I'm about to bring you to a humble beginning, because greatness starts with humble beginnings. So I'm gonna break a bunch of things off of you that you thought was about you, but it ain't about you. So
Because it was never about you.
never, and
it
it
was
still
always
ain't.
about my
and
kingdom.
it still ain't. So ended up doing that, and I was like, all right, God, I'm gonna do this. But if I do it, I need residual income. I'm living with my mama. I got a wife, a daughter. I got all these responsibilities. Like this little salary ain't gonna cut it.
Yeah.
And so he gave me the idea to create my own fitness and consulting business. Fitness I understood from athletics, but
Yeah.
consulting I never understood. So
Yeah.
stood out on faith, and I did it anyway.
And what is the name of it?
The LLC is Lubbock Smith III LLC. So I prayed on it. I didn't even know what the name is until God told me in the shower. I know that sounds crazy, but he was like,
The shower combos be like,
he told
where
me,
the
yes, that's
visions
where
come.
it comes. And he told me, he said, your business is your brand. Your brand is your name.
You can
And there-
see why I did Elizabeth O and Co.
Exactly. So we think alike, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and ended up doing that. And after 2 to 3 weeks, which is
Yeah.
crazy, my sister told me this was gonna happen. She was like, in 2 to 3 weeks, you're gonna get promoted. I was like, I've never heard somebody get promoted in 2 to 3 months.
Let
2
alone-
to 3 weeks ain't happening.
Yeah.
And so 2 to 3 weeks go by. Dallas IZ hit me up for a headquarter position. really great paying, everything I need in the meantime so I can get to what I want to do. Kill the interview on a Friday. I expected a call on Monday.
Yeah.
I get a call from the principal of the school I was teaching at, subbing at, Kip Truth Academy. And she said, I heard you killed your interview with Dallas IZ. I'm like, oh, shoot, what's she
Now
about to
you
say?
heard about me.
Right. She said, I want to make this competitive. I want to promote you to third grade lead math teacher, double your salary or match it if it ain't high enough, give you all kind of different perks and benefits. I'm like, bro, what? I was like, I ain't never talked
And
before
just 3 weeks ago, you thought that you had to humble yourself to take the role.
for a substitute position, right? So just being
God
obedient, stepping
said
out on faith.
it's
Oh
just
yeah.
a title.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. It's just a part of the journey. And so ended up doing that, and fitness business takes off. Still nothing consulting yet. And one of my best friends, Tar Black, moves to Dallas. He's playing in the NBA and overseas. And we get caught up, and God gives me a vision to connect him with my other best friend, Jeremiah Hatch, who's in real estate, who I've been playing football and knowing since middle school, Carter
Yeah.
High School, college. And he been killing in real estate. God was like, connect the two of them because they're gonna do great things in real estate. I do just that. The same day, they create our real estate company, Built-In Realty Group, bring me in as co-founder, partner, and now pretty much operate as a board member for the company.
Let's
And we do
go.
residential commercial. Then got more implemented into a nonprofit that I have co-founded called
Yeah.
Camp Exposure. And then December 2020, after one of my workout sessions, God tells me to go to this restaurant called Lucky's.
Hold on, pause.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they're ready for what's happening in the
It's
story.
momentum. Yeah.
The momentum that's building. I hope you guys have been like doing the mathematics in your mind and like doing the calculations and just like, okay, hold on. God told him to do this. He did this. It worked, but did it work? Okay, but it's all making sense
Yes.
to get you.
It's making sense, but it ain't. In the
Yeah.
natural,
It-
it ain't, the
I
math
was
ain't math, but in the
just at
supernatural,
church, yeah.
it's this guy just weaving the web according to his perfect plan that he got set up.
I was at church and that's what they were saying in the sermon as far as like there are things that are happening in the physical world
Yeah.
that will never make sense, but it only makes sense when you're connected to the source.
Yeah.
When he's talking to you, you're like, oh, okay, that's the playbook. But then when you're even trying to interpretate it to others, they're like, huh? Like what?
Right.
But it's like, just trust.
That's why I wanted to make sure I gave context
Yeah.
because God is the ultimate orchestrator. Like,
Yes.
you see the notes on the thing, it's like, this ain't making sense, but when you bring it all together, it's like, dang, that's what you were
Now
doing the
it's
whole
like a
time.
full
And so that's what ended up happening.
orchestra.
Because when I got there, I'm talking to a friend of mine over the phone about self-care and self-awareness. Sitting across from me is this short white dude with a hat on. He's swagging, but I'm just like, why he staring at me?
Yeah.
And so I get out the phone call, I pray over my food, and I look up, I'm like, this dude's staring at me. He said, my man, everything you said on that phone call was impressive, but what was more impressive was that you took out time to prepare your food. That lets me know you're a man of faith. You mind if I come join you? And so I'm like, shoot, bet,
Sure,
pull up.
yeah.
And so he was like, tell me about yourself. Told him about my background and story. He said, you play football at KU? I was like, yeah. He said, how good were you? I said, 4 years started at safety with 3 different head coaches. He said, man, I'm the chairman for the Board of Regents for Texas Tech Athletics. When he said that, I was like, I know exactly what that means for my position in athletics when I first started out and fundraising
Like,
development.
That you would have to understand it to know the gravity of the fact that we are seated at a
Yep.
diner and having this conversation, having
Yep.
a boardroom discussion at
Yep.
a diner.
And which is crazy because I didn't even want to go to that restaurant. When I looked it up and saw how far it was like 20, 30 minutes away. I'm like,
I can go
God, I
somewhere
can go to
else.
Chick-fil-A in Oak Cliff right around the corner. It's 3 minutes away.
Yeah.
Eat, go home, take a nap. Like, that ain't making sense. But I had a strong conviction that if I didn't go, I was going to miss something. So here we are, sitting down talking. He tells me Cliff Kingsbury is one of his clients, who at
Yeah.
the time was one of the head coaches he was the head coach for the Arizona Cardinals.
Wow.
Then the DC, the defensive coordinator for Green Bay, I believe that's who he was. And then the head coach for Oklahoma football, who was Lincoln Riley.
Let's go.
And so I was like, oh, snap, I'm a finalist. That's why God tells me to come here. And so I told him, a few minutes goes by. He shows me his phone. It's a text message to Lincoln. It says, hey, Lincoln, I just met one of the most remarkable young men I've met in 5 minutes. His name is Lubbock Smith. You need to hire him. I'm like, bet. Like, this is said, like, I got the position. Guy was like, nah, keep talking to him. That ain't it.
That's not the one.
That ain't what you think it is. Like, just keep talking. So we keep talking. The Lord gives me a word for him. I pray over him. We get done with the prayer. He was like, dude, that prayer was spot on. like I got chills. Like he was showing me his arm, he had chills on it. And he said, I feel like God is telling me I'm called to pour and invest into you because you're called to pour and invest in others. He said, we're going to be friends for the rest of our lives, but what you need to know is that I'm the CEO of a bank. And so that led me to building a friendship relationship with him. That was December 2020. January 2021, our CMO, our Chief Marketing and Communications Officer, Kathy Landtroop, she texted me and was like, John told me to text you. I heard that you're a world changer and that you teach third grade math. We got financial literacy coloring books. I feel like that can be a good start.
Yeah.
We ended up getting on a phone call that was supposed to be for 15 minutes, ended up talking for an hour and a half. At the end of the call, she was like, we got to get you over to the bank. Get me over to the bank. In the boardroom is the CMO, our PR at the time, and then one of our senior VP lenders. And there was like, yeah, they were like, we've created a Dallas South Initiative Committee that we're trying to pour into and impact the Dallas South community, but we're not trying to do like any corny, gimmicky stuff that's photo
And
opy.
who better than someone who's from the community,
Exactly.
who's of the community.
But they had no clue. We were still getting to know each other, right? And so it was like, getting to know you, we feel like this may be a good start. It can lead to something. I was like, shoot, we can go to Carter High School. We can go to Fort Oak Cliff. I know this person, that person. Like, we can do some things.
Yeah.
Which ended up happening, but even greater. And so they were like, we want to do more. I heard the Lord say, they're going to sponsor your nonprofit. I said, you want to sponsor our nonprofit? They was like, yep. We want to be title sponsor, donate $20,000. We'll provide sweat equity, the bank will volunteer, and we're going to do corporate media coverage. So when that happened, and my background being in athletics, I was like, in fundraising, I'm like, I'm about to go get more partners.
Yeah.
So I got time with them Albertsons, BioSteel, Main Event, Whataburger, the Dallas Cowboys, Hilton Hotels. Like I just started ramping up.
Yeah.
And so it turned out to be a great hit. We're on Channel 11, 8, 5, K104, 97.9 The Beaches, all over the place. And the CEO and I had an interview with NBC5. We get done with the interview. He FaceTimes me and was like, bro, I kill every interview that I do. You dominated me the entire time. He said, you're impressive. I want to make this permanent. I'm creating a position for you at the bank. And so I'm like, what the heck just freaking happened? And so I'm like, I'm appreciative of the opportunity. You know, I told the school, because it was a week away before school started, that I was going to come back and teach. They wanted me to teach second grade. I ended up teaching 8th grade algebra to finish out the school year. But I was like, we don't have a lot of men, yet alone black men, in the school system. But this is an opportunity that's going to change me and my family's life. So I'm like, how can we work that out? He said, I commend you on speaking up. He said, when you made your business, how did you make it? Remember I told you I didn't know what to do with the consulting side? So I told him, I said, I made it fitness and consulting. He said, perfect. I can hire you full-time as a consultant to start out to see if you like it, pay you from August to December.
Come on.
Pay for your training for banking, and if you love it and it's a good fit, you'll start in-house with us January 2022, being our Director of Community Development and Outreach.
And the thing is, at the time, you have no idea why you're doing something, and it all makes sense. As you're sharing this story, I remember the exact moment and who I was with when I was about to file my LLC as Elizabeth O. and Co. And I remember at the time, the vision was, I have a YouTube channel, I make Get Ready With Me's, and I thrift and show people how I thrift.
Yeah.
They think it's chaotic, so they want me to thrift on their behalf. So, okay, cool, am I a stylist? If I'm a stylist, what are my rates? Am I a personal shopper? If I'm a personal shopper, what are my rates? But they're also asking me, hey, the same way you make your Get Ready With Me's and your lookbooks, we want you to do that for us.
Oh, wow.
They want to rebrand. For example, my first client, she was rebranding into real estate. So now if she's selling homes and selling a lifestyle, she wants someone to pick out all her looks, find the locations, and shoot it all.
Yeah.
And I'm coordinating all that. I said, what is that? Image consulting. So if that's a consultant, you see, if that's a consultant, I can't file this as like looks by Liz. Like, no, like it's got to be something broader because this
you
is
can
just
do it
the
all.
vision that I have at this moment. What more, we're now even in 2024 in the direction, the podcast is under Elizabeth.
Exactly.
So it's like the events I host are under it, like everything's under it, the brand partnerships under it. And that's where I'm like, okay, when I was with those set of friends slash coworkers at the time, we were all sitting there and it was like just like a pizza night, movie night. And I was like, what, should I name it this? Should I name it that? What if it was kind of like how Tiffany and Co. has theirs? Because who's Co. is just
Right.
company. And then you can define what that company is.
Exactly.
So to see the same kind of correlation of like, think big, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
one day it will make sense. And now
No, absolutely.
it made sense as far as the consultant aspect for you.
Yeah, it made sense at that point, but even then, because I started out building a friendship with him, not working for the bank, but I was actually volunteering when I was serving on the committee. And so everybody that was like, hey, you connected to this bank, they,
Yeah.
you know, they doing some big things. Why they not paying you? I was like, because God ain't tell me to get paid. So I really truly believe if I would have been like, hey, I need to be getting compensated for this,
Yeah.
I won't be where I'm at because I would be making it about the profit versus the purpose.
Woo! So you, in turn, you made it a chess move and not a check move. And I say chess not
Yeah.
because you were playing the strategy
Yeah.
game, but you held off on the fact that you were looking for your cut right now. You weren't looking for the check. You weren't
Yeah.
looking for the money. You were like, hey, I'm here to build rapport and see what God has for me.
Exactly.
And by playing the long game, God said, okay, chess
He
move wise,
set up something better.
I'm gonna set this up for you.
Exactly. And God, you know, God's word says that He's able to do above and beyond anything we could ever imagine
Yeah.
or think. So I'm just like, you know what? I want to really. I've tried doing things my way and saying, God, come along with me. Now I'm like, I want to be on your page,
Yeah.
doing things your way, and fulfilling
get
your
in your
purpose.
car.
Exactly. Exactly. And so for me being able to be in that position and not revert back to my old ways, I'm like, you know what, God, I'm gonna step out on faith, but being obedient. I'm not gonna do it. You didn't tell me to get paid, so I'm not gonna do it. In terms of taking that opportunity, I was extremely grateful, took it on, started January 2022. And I'm like, I've never been in banking. I have no financial background, but then the Lord was like, no, you do. Because I'm praying about how to be successful and use
Yep.
strategy. He said, you're gonna take all your background from growing up in a single parent household,
Yep.
overcoming adversity, being the man of the house at the age of 9, being able to hustle and sell chips, DVDs, CDs in high school, using all these skill sets, gift of gab, just all those things,
Come on.
athletics, everything. God was like, none of these things were in vain. I'm putting it all together so that way you can create an innovative way of banking to serve the purpose I've called you to do. And then he gave me 3 scriptures. The first one was to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. The second one was the greatest among you will be a servant to all, right? And then the third one, I believe if it wasn't mistaken, it was about serving others, right? And so I'm just like, all right, God, I'm gonna serve others, I'm gonna put them first. But he was like, no, no, no. If you wanna be great in my kingdom, you have to learn to serve others in order to reciprocate that and create the mutual win-win relationships that's gonna serve you, but it's really gonna serve others. So I'm like, all right, bet. And so ended up doing that, and it just started creating value and volume. So created tons of connections at the bank. I won't list them just for the sake of time, but we ended up getting connected with the gentleman that owned property over in Oak Cliff,
Love
and then
that.
gentleman that owned property over in South Dallas. And the CEO was like, if we got a new bank, where would you want it? Oak Cliff or South Dallas? I said, shoot, if we want to win right now, Oak Cliff. But if we want to change the future, South Dallas.
What made you say South Dallas for the future?
Because I had just built a home in South Dallas and I was trying to live in Oak Cliff. I was fighting to live in Oak Cliff. But I got a call from a friend who's a developer and lives in South Dallas. He said, I got an epiphany for you. And I almost cried. He said, I feel like you're supposed to live in South Dallas. So when me, my wife, and my daughter went to go look at it, we all looked at each other like, this is the house. Like, we're supposed to live here. And had no plans to get in a bank in South Dallas, right? This was
Two
not,
separate
none of
timelines.
this was planned. This was like
Yeah.
all God divine.
Yeah.
We ended up getting a home in the new bank in South Dallas, which is off of MLK facing Fair Park.
Yeah.
It's 3 minutes around the corner from my house. So he ended up being like, you want to lead our bank in South Dallas? He was like, dude, like you have the it factor. Like God has an anointing in favor of you. He
Yeah.
said, I don't even think what you're going to do in terms of like big picture is going to be banking. He said, I think it's going to be way bigger than that, but it's going to be a part of the journey that God has for
Yeah.
you. And he said, I want myself and this bank to be a part of that journey because we know God is calling us to be together. So now I'm vice president
And now
and
look.
soon to be senior VP leading this bank in South Dallas.
And now look. And now I'm a proud client.
Now you're a client and I have the opportunity to serve you in your business and put you first, and we got some even greater things to come. For sure.
I love that. No, your testimony, your story, your journey is inspiring, extremely inspiring. And it resounded with me. For me, I was like, wow, when we had essentially the 2 day meet of discussing everything and the ebbs and flows and even things that we don't have time on today's
Yeah.
podcast to discuss, that's what made me say, like, no, like this man is ordained. And there's a reason why, not a minute early, not a minute later, like we're supposed to encounter one another and figure out what is the add value that we could bring to one another. So this is truly a beautiful story.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing. In regards to the first love, in regards to knowing that she was your person when you found out and kind of had that conviction, I think a lot of the viewers listening and most of our audience are women. You are actually our second gentleman to be in season 1.
I hope I hold it down for the man, though.
I hope you're holding it down. No, I'm kidding. You are. I think you are. I think you're doing a great job. And I'm a selective individual when it comes to who will be brought on and the perspectives that are going to be shared. But a lot of women listening in would probably want to know, how did you know that she was your person? There's a series of questions. So that's the first one. We'll start there.
All right, so I knew she was my person for when I gave my life to Christ. And I have been doing all kind of different stuff from, partying and, all the stuff that come with it, with that scene. And I did a full 180, like full cold turkey, no having sex until we got married, which was like a 2.5 years later, completely just abstinent from everything, right?
Yeah.
And I remember not being able to sleep, having insomnia and just sleep deprived for about a month and a half. It was bad. And it was during spring training for football. And so
let's set the setting. How old were you at this point?
I was 22.
Okay.
I was 22 in my senior year. And I remember she was over at my apartment and we were both praying and reading the word and just praying that I would somehow go to sleep. I could not sleep. And I remember hearing her crying and praying over me. And she said, God, I will give up a full week worth of sleep just so he can get one night of rest. In that moment, I promise you not, I heard the Lord say, she the one. And my wife can tell you this, I'm a stubborn person. Even though I heard the Lord clear as day, I was like, I heard you, but I need some more confirmation.
Yeah.
So I kept praying. After that, I was like, I'm really intentionally praying, like,
Yeah.
keep giving me confirmation, because when I know something to be like, sure, God know me, I'm gonna stand on it. I'm gonna stand on business and I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I didn't see marriage go well in my own household, yet alone people around me.
Yeah. So
I want to
how can
really
you turn that around for yourself
exactly. So
and not just be a product of your environment?
exactly. So I was like, I'm gonna do it. I need to know. And countless times he showed me. And so I ended up proposing to her on the same day that I had met her 6 years before.
Yeah.
In the club.
Wow.
Yeah. So
You proposed in the club?
No. So we met in the club 6 years prior when I first got to KU to play football.
Okay.
And so we met in the club. She was her and two of our other friends.
Yeah.
And they all were bad, but when I saw her, she was the last one to come in.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, she the one. I'm
Say the
snagging.
best for last.
Oh yeah. And so I tried to holler at her, and she shut me down, and she was like, find me later. So I found her later, and I got her behind her, so I danced behind her, and she leaned over to her friend, was like, how you look? Her friend leaned over and was like, girl, you fine as hell. And then she turned around, it was me, and I was like, what's up? She was like, oh, it's you. I was like, you gonna give me a number now? So he gave me a number, and the rest was history.
Yeah.
That was on June 28, 2008.
Okay.
I proposed to her on June 28, 2012. Well, no, 2014. 2014. So it was 6 years later. And so proposed to her.
Wow.
We ended up getting proposed at the same spot we had a Bible study at, because she actually discipled me. She actually helped me really walk it out, because when we broke things off when we were dating,
Yeah.
she got a word from the Lord at church the first time she ever went to church on a Sunday, that during the sermon, the pastor was like, who is your Jordan River that's preventing you from getting to the promised land that God has for
Ooh,
you?
and
And
what
she
was
said the
the
Lord
answer?
told her that I was preventing her.
So this leads me into my next question. What advice would you have to a listener or viewer who is trying to identify a relationship that may feel unequally yoked?
I would definitely say that you should only be dating with the intent to marry. So if you're already pursuing a person where you can already identify that this is not what God has called you into, they don't meet the things that God is calling you into for your purpose in life, then don't even pursue it. I think it's quite simple. Just because you're not dating doesn't mean that y'all can't be brothers and sisters in Christ. But if you're going to be married to someone, you got to be equally yoked with being able to balance each other. And that's exactly what we've done for each other. And she's helped me become who I am today. And I hope I've inspired her to become,
Yeah.
the woman and
Instead
the
of
wife
being
and mother.
the roadblock.
Yeah. So I would say before I came to Christ, I was a roadblock.
Okay.
I would definitely now say that I've been helping her build the house that God has for us
I
together,
love that.
spiritually and in the natural.
So would you express that it does take patience when building with the right person?
Yeah.
And would you say that there is a right person, or the right person is who you choose?
I think the right person is who you choose.
Okay.
And I think that God gives free will and autonomy, and love is a choice. So he's not going to say that, you got to marry that person. But I do believe you know who not to marry. And I think that you can find the characteristics that meet exactly what God is calling you for a person. But I do believe that there is a better fit, if that makes sense. And I think that she's been the best fit for me in my life. And hopefully I've been the same thing for her. But I think,
That's lovely.
throughout our almost now 10 years of life, I can definitely think that we can say that for each other.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Appreciate it, yeah.
Let's pivot into Genesis.
Oh, yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about these daddy-daughter dates, because when I saw, I said, hold on. This is so adorable. Like, when you see those posts of the dad takes the daughter out and then it goes viral and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this daughter is gonna know what, a real man is like. I think that it's beautiful to see, but it's nice to know someone in person that does that.
Yeah.
So what made you start doing that, and what makes you continue doing it?
I would say just growing up, seeing my sisters not have a father figure, not have a male in the household. And I just think that when it comes to any child, any children that you have, you want to be intentional and pour into them daily and know that everything that you do is going to impact them. Whether it's the way you engage them from the moment they wake up to you, us at bedtime. If it's not my wife, it's me, getting in bed with her, reading a book, praying over her, reading the Bible, being intentional. And what I've noticed is that she enjoys just coming with me to do stuff. Whether it's coming to my job, coming around, going and looking at houses, real estate, just everything. And I asked her, Jen, what do you love most? And she was like, I love just hanging out with you, Dad. And I was like, you do? I was like, what you enjoy most? She was like, going to Vista Bank, doing this. I was just like, these are all things that are building blocks for her life. And what I enjoy the most is
Exposing her to that.
exposing her, but also just opening her mind up to the possibilities of what she can do.
Yeah.
Not always focus on the things that she can't.
Focusing on building a mindset of abundance for her instead of scarcity. And the idea of if your dad got it out the mud, you're going to get it out the garden. And
yeah.
you're going to have an abundance of options. And this is kind of like your playground and your starting.
Right.
So the expectations for you to now do this. And of course, your capacity of what God has called you towards.
And what I'm doing also too is empowering her to understand that, come on now, we're on the same page.
Yep.
Empowering her to understand that the possibilities are limitless.
Yeah.
And I'm always just pointing to her constantly, daily, affirming her, who she is, who God has called her to be, but not limiting her or bounding her to what I see her to be.
Yeah.
Because
Ooh.
a lot of times as parents, we see, I want you to do this, I want to do that. I'm like, honestly, Genesis, I just want you to be excellent and great at whatever it is that you want to pursue. But the last thing I want you to do is, I don't want you to
Live your life for mom and dad.
not even just that, but just go through life just saying I kind of no, be great and dominate. And I want you to be great in every single thing that you do, even from the point of you being a child. So I think that's the bond that we have now, and I enjoy it every single day.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. What you were mentioning as far as not limiting the child to the parental belief. Maybe last year, I saw this video of Will Smith, and he was expressing his ideology on parenthood. And something that resonated with me and what he was expressing was if the creator of the universe, if God had planted a seed and knew what the seed was and knew what the seed's potential was, and you as a parent was simply to be a gardener and cultivate an environment for them, it's not your job to say, why are you not growing up to be a rose? If whole time that was a seed to bloom into a tulip.
Right.
And so all you can do is provide nourishment, give them a good environment to go towards the sun for photosynthesis, go towards the water, change out the soil,
For sure.
surround them by other ones that they can get rooted and planted with. Just having the realization that as a parent, it's not your job to say, you must become this, but rather, let me give you the space and just nourish and be a gardener in your life and guide you, even though your full source, the sun, your God, is the one who already knows
Right.
who you're supposed to be.
Because what I may be trying to have you become may actually be small in comparison to the bigger picture that God has for you.
Say
So I never
that.
want to get in God's way. I want to partner with Him in raising the child that He gave me, because it's really His child at the end of the day. So
I love that.
It's our child, me and my wife. So
Yes.
yeah.
So, in the spirit of the next part of the show, what we call this portion is passing the mic. And then before we get into passing the mic, we actually call this the main character phase. So, I feel like you guys are all main characters. That's why you guys are brought on the show. You guys have these huge personalities and these amazing testimonies. And so I want you guys to wear the hat, and I'll sit in the hot seat now. So I'll give you the cue cards, but if you have a question in mind, what question do you have for me?
What does success look like for your life, and do you believe that it aligns with God's purpose for you?
Great question. I feel like success for me looks like me fulfilling God's calling upon my life. So truly ridding myself of who I think that I'm supposed to be and viewing myself the way God views me. And I do think that that is very difficult. The reason I say it's difficult is because I think that oftentimes I see myself here. We all have an alter ego, but I see myself here. And I feel like God sees me here. And it's so difficult for me to really rise to that occasion and like really operate in that woman that He's called me to be. But then I see it come out here and there, and I'm like, okay. Or like when He shows me through others, like the way someone will demonstrate grace to me, I'm like, okay, like you view me how God views me, and that's just like such a beautiful thing. So I would say that is what success looks like for me. Like if I can fulfill that at the end of the day, I feel like I'm successful. I think in the past, if I was asked that question, my answer would be all over the place. And it would be kind of geared in the societal steps of building legacy.
Yeah.
And it would be like the greater good of, I want to make sure that I get to the point of life where I end up being a mom and I end up seeing my kids do X, Y, and Z, and I leave generational wealth, and and now I'm like, I kind of feel like that's what God already has for me, like for me to walk into motherhood and for me to walk into that season. But beyond just like the family aspects and things of that nature, success really looks like knowing who God says that you are and walking in that. So that kind of ties into your point of, do I feel like it aligns with God? What was the second
God's
part?
purpose? God's purpose for your life?
Oh yeah. I
definitely sounds like it does, yeah.
think that my level of success is only attached to His purpose in my life. And where I have been in roles where I'm in this percentile as far as how much I'm making, and I didn't fully feel like I was walking in what God told me to walk in. Doesn't mean that it's a bad job. Doesn't mean that the job is of the world.
Yeah.
It just means that I wasn't walking in my calling. And if one day that makes a full circle moment, He's going to reveal why He had to take me out of that and put me in something else in order to bring me back to that height or that viewpoint of what society sees success to be.
That's great.
Thank you. That was a great question.
Oh, absolutely.
Next question is, the previous guest had asked you a quick question. They don't know who you are. They don't know what you look like. They don't even know if you're a man or a woman. Question that the previous guest has for you is, would you rather be loved or be right?
Would I rather be loved or be right? Ooh, that's a good question. The flesh in me wants to say I want to be right. But deep down in my core, the godly answer, which what I'm aiming for, is to be loved. Because I truly believe in order to be loved, you have to be willing to give something up. You have to first love someone else, and that's putting them first, putting their needs above your own. Be willing to be patient, humble yourself, like all the things that 1 Corinthians 13 talks about, right?
Come on.
So I would rather go with that answer to be very transparent with you, I think that it is a challenge because the flesh is weak. You're always wanting to be right. Pride always wants to arise. But I think deep down who I am in my core is I want to be loved. So I got to be willing to die to myself daily and sacrifice myself, especially when it comes to relationships. So
Gotta die to the flesh.
yeah, they say that, do you want to be right or do you want her to be happy? And so I think that, to answer this question, I want to be loved.
That's a good way to put it. Thank you for answering that.
For sure.
And
That's
what
a good
question
question.
do you have for the next guest in honor of passing the mic?
How do they intend to make Dallas greater than they found it?
That's a good one. Why you ask that?
I asked it because I truly love Dallas. I really believe that Dallas is going to change the world. And biasly, I think it's going to be in South Dallas.
Yeah.
Given the fact that I'm going to drop a little, something, that I'll be leading our first bank in South Dallas
Let's
in over
go.
30 years in that Fair Park area. And it's our newest bank. It's our biggest of all in terms of size of the bank. And then it's our largest financial investment.
Oh, I love
And so the bank is going to be 11,000 plus square feet. We'll have the bank, we'll have a classroom teaching financial literacy, banking, real estate, entrepreneurship. If it's going to create generational wealth, we're going to teach it. We'll have an incubator and office space for the Dallas Break Chamber of Commerce, and then an entrepreneurship center called the South Dallas Fair Park Innovation Center, led by Darlisa Dilts, Black woman, and James McGee, who's a Black man. So it's really a community effort. We want to help everyone, but that community, which is predominantly Black and Hispanic, is overlooked, underserved.
Yep.
We want to provide a hand up. It goes into the vision of teaching our community how to fish, while also giving them access to a quality pond to put them on a pathway towards a yes.
A quality pond.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that. And
Official
how can
man.
everyone stay up to date with you? How can they stay in contact with you? How can they support you?
I'm pretty simple. So you can find me on Instagram at Lubbock Smith. I'm also on LinkedIn, Lubbock Smith III. You can follow, Vista Bank at Vista Bank and Built-In Realty Group. A part of the real estate company I'm part of. So I'm pretty simple. I'm pretty easy to find.
I love that. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I truly appreciate you coming on. This has been a lot of fun. Hearing your story, I will never get tired of it. This is a beautiful, beautiful space and just a beautiful testimony.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we crossed paths when we did. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Okay, awesome. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Stay tuned for the next episode and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Bye, guys.